What's up, NBA fans? And guess what? Es brodelt in der Gerüchteküche. Or let's say this in English. It is really boiling, broiling already in the NBA rumor kitchen. And we start off with a mega headline of this week, in which insider sources, and among them ESPN and NBA.com, indicate a rumor that the Los Angeles Lakers are ready to trade for Dwight Howard and for Chris Paul. According to those insider sources, both superstars were talking about this matter of playing on the same team, whereas for Chris Paul, playing together with his fellows Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire in New York would have been his first choice earlier this week. Yet, with Paul admitting that the Knicks lacked the trade assets to land him after all. So with New Orleans willing to trade him before the start of the season, or before the end of his contract, the heat is on. Possible trade scenario for the Lakers, according to ESPN insider sources, could be Paul Gasol for Chris Paul and Andrew Bynum for Howard. And when they add Lamar Odom into the mix, they would do Orlando a big favor and sweeten the offer for the Magic by taking back the contract of Hedo Turkoglu. The Clippers were also in the mix about these two superstars, but personally I doubt that they could compete with the higher legendary legacy status of Big Brother, LA Lakers. In an earlier scenario this week, despite not signing an extension with the Nets, former Utah Jazz star Deron Williams indicated that he considers to stay in New Jersey in 90% of the case. He shrugged off any rumors joining the Knicks along with Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire, but staying put with the New Jersey Nets, as if Dwight Howard isn't sought after enough already. Even the Nets seem to plan to land him in a blockbuster deal, which would send their young center Brook Lopez and two future first-round picks to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Howard and the remaining 3 years and $35 million on Hedo Turkoglu's contract. But let's talk about that special scenario of the week a little bit more into detail. Imagine the Lakers landing Howard and Paul on their team. That would drastically boost up their low post and defensive power at center up front and solve a big-time puzzle in the field, in the field of general position, because Chris Paul is a very smart player who can make almost everyone better, and Kobe can get open looks. That is, of course, under the condition if Kobe is willing to sacrifice some leadership tasks with a more versatile floor general Chris Paul, or else we would have another internal confrontation in the Lakers Express. But if Kobe is willing to cooperate and sacrifice some, like we from the Blitz Hardcore podcast would call it, shot jacking, the Lakers Express would indeed be on the verge of a championship resurrection. Mike Brown would have a much harder task in dealing with three high-caliber superstars if this really comes true. I'm pretty sure that the Blitz Hardcore podcast, Joseph and co. would hype them up as title contender number 1 if the Lakers can land both of them. Because in the previous podcast, they already mentioned that alone with Howard, the Lakers would rock the house in LA. If the Lakers management can get such a deal done, they're out of their minds. Really. I mean, think about it. Kobe, Howard, and Paul on the same team? I mean, isn't that something we should all be excited about? And also considering the fact that the Lakers management has the more unique management skills to hire and rehire a reliable enough supporting cast, to give the icing on the cake. Kobe Bryant, overrated or not, that deal would be an insult to the other NBA teams. Come on, man. Urgently in the need of a center, low post presence. The latest news in South Beach indicate that the Heat are interested in signing Greg Oden. It's a very high-risk move, and from my point of view, since his tendencies for injury proneness is dark red alert high. Earlier last week, Samuel Dalembert has voiced keen interest in joining the Big Three. For Miami, that would be a start and a more realistic issue, of course, considering that there are other transaction plans for higher quality big men and possibly for Nene that are currently on the market fail. The Heat have also been in talks with Shane Battier, who, according to insider sources, has narrowed his choices to 4 teams, including Miami. For the Heat, it would be truly an upgrade to have a tough guy who can bring the defensive prowess toughness off the bench. Down to Texas in the Wild Wild West, free agent prospect Tyson Chandler has announced that his return to the Dallas Mavericks is very unlikely. For Dallas, this would practically mean the end for a title defense, since Chandler's athleticism and toughness on both ends of the floor have been a key for their first ever NBA championship. One of the candidates that Mr. Chandler considered were the Golden State Warriors. Or maybe she should consider going back to the Chicago Bulls, maybe in a sign and trade. I mean, for me, from a Bulls fan perspective, I wouldn't miss Joakim Noah too much if we can get back a matured Tyson Chandler, who was once one of us. Chandler to Miami is obviously very unlikely, so no comment about that. On a side note, while we talk about Miami, having watched a clip of ESPN yesterday, Magic Johnson voiced his preference to see LeBron as the main ball handler instead of Wade. I mean, wow. Let me ask my older brother and Bruce Blitz what they think about that. In the earliest stages of the rumor mill, Rajon Rondo's name was put into trade rumors with Chris Paul, but Celtics basketball operations president Danny Ainge has shrugged them off, stating that the Celtics plan to keep the main core players, including Rondo, into the team. Very quickly on this one, it looks like that Karen Butler has the tendency to join the Clippers. My final words, the Phoenix Suns are planning to actually waive Vince Carter as soon as the lockout ends. Maybe the Heat or the Bulls should go after him if their primary transaction trials of each of them fail. Personally, I would love to talk about the Bulls a little bit more, but I haven't heard any significant news yet in terms of free agency or trade market. I would have to ask Bruce Blitz or listen to his Blitz Hardcore podcast coming up this week when it's NBA time. Until we know something is really happening, I will stop and put my free agency and trade transaction insights on hold now. Peace.